similar to melanin, DHA. And this is something we can more control by our diet. That gets incorporated in cell membranes, and we can make energy when sunlight interacts with that. Bring that piece in.
Yeah, so DHA is an omega-3 fatty acid that we all know. People take their fish oil supplements and things like that, which I don't necessarily recommend, but we get it from animal foods. We get this omega-3 fatty acids from animal foods, and DHA has what's called a pi electron cloud around it. So it has this concentration of electrons around it, and when light hits that electron cloud, it excites it, and it literally creates DC electricity from that. This is what Einstein described as the photoelectric effect. So again, light hitting something, making electricity. And that's what DHA does for us, which is why it's concentrated in high amounts in skin. It's also why, when you look at red blood cell membranes, they have lots of DHA, and that's why when we get out in the sun, we turn a little bit red and pink, because the blood is rising to the surface of our skin to soak up more sunlight and use that to create electrons. And so that's exactly what's happening. And when we use plant fats instead of animal fats, we start to build our tissues and red blood cells with phytosterol. Then that's a problem. And there's studies that show that building and I talk about this in my heart book, that when you build red blood cells, the cell membranes of red blood cells with plant sterols, phytosterol, then they become more rigid. They're not flexible, which can damage things when they get into tight capillaries and things like that. But it also interferes with the ability of your body to harvest electrons from sunlight, or turn sunlight to electrons, because the red blood cells come to the surface and they're just full of plant sterols, and they can't have that photoelectric effect from the pi electron cloud. So animal foods is one reason why animal foods are super important, and why historically humans have eaten a lot of seafood, because it's very high in DHA. So yeah.
Let's talk more about phytosterols. So this will pivot off of something we talked about earlier. Being down south, say somebody's down there and they're in we'll just say summer, taking in more plants. But now we have this phytosterol piece and taking in these fats that are going to get incorporated in red blood cells. We've omitted the other arguments we brought up before, but now we have the phytosterol piece. So what I'm getting at, I'm trying to parse this one piece out. Somebody who is, say, in Florida in the summer, eating plants, incorporating these phytosterols, are they still better off eating animal foods because of this DHA piece?
I would say so, yes. Which is why even if you look at like Weston Price's travels and things like that, and how he went around the world, they were all prioritized these animal foods. They all prioritized getting butter from a cow if they lived in the Swiss Alps, or if they were, on the coast, they were eating tons of fish and fermented fish and things like that. Like they were prioritizing animal foods for a reason. And Weston Price said, he conjectured that it was the vitamin K. That was one thing that they were really getting from the animal foods, and that is one thing they were getting. But it's also because they were optimizing their ability to harvest electrons by sunlight. And maybe they understood that, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But it was critically important. But that doesn't mean that you can't eat plant foods. It just means that you need to make sure you're getting enough animal foods so that you can harvest energy in different ways. Because if you don't, like, there are scientists out there that say that we should get only a third of our energy from food, from actual metabolism, or metabolism from food, because I consider metabolism harvesting electrons from anywhere and using it to create ATP and structured water in the body. And so if you interfere with that, then your ability to harvest those electrons, you're making yourself really dependent on just food. And that's a problem because then we're overworking our metabolism as far as glycolysis and Krebs cycle, instead of just getting these free electrons from the environment. It's requiring a lot more work to get those rather than just changing it from light energy or directly from the earth, grounding, and bringing those electrons directly in. So it's a reason we're supposed to live outside, and it's a reason that when we live more inside, we we are starting to see these diseases, especially these metabolic diseases that we're seeing, these breakdowns in mitochondrial function. So yeah.
Given what you just shared, a third of our electrons roughly coming from food. The other two big ones are grounding and sunlight. Theoretically, do you feel like somebody could go without food if they're living in the tropics, getting that sun and grounding and just getting their electrons from those other two pieces?
I don't know. I don't know if anybody's looked at that or studied that. I mean, we definitely have people who claim to be breatharians.
Which is what I'm
Uh,
getting at.
yeah, so it'd be interesting. I've never met one, never talked to one, so I don't know. But I guess that scientist that I'm talking about, he's saying that we're supposed to get a third of electrons from food, so we still need some from food. I guess he's saying, but I think more importantly, because there's people that talk about macros as far as energy, proteins, fats, carbs, things like that. I think it's much more important to focus on nutrient content. Is the food providing you with adequate nutrients? Does it have the nutrients in there that you need, and are they bioavailable to you, which is a very important piece? Can our digestion actually absorb them the way it's supposed to? And then, the energy piece will, especially if we're in the right environments, more sunlight, more grounding, then the energy piece is less important, as far as, because your body will take what it needs from that food, the energy it needs, and the rest it'll get from its environment if you're providing that to it. So that's tough in the modern world. I have to spend 28, 30 hours a week in a clinic that's indoors under artificial light. But when I'm not in that clinic, I am outside as much as possible. And even then, like, I have a window open right now, just trying to get natural light in. It's not being in direct sunlight, but it's trying to get natural light. So just doing all those types of things as much as you can is really important. So yeah.
Shortly before we jumped on here together, I saw on your Instagram stories you're out getting sun, shirt off, which brings me to the benefits of sunlight on the skin versus the eyes.
Well, for a circadian rhythm perspective, the eyes are more important, definitely. But sunlight signaling on the skin it plays a role in circadian rhythm as well. But then the benefits of sunlight on the skin is all the electron harvesting effects that you're getting. Plus, like, there's things like, if you UVA light, or UV light in general, actually, on the skin has been shown to produce heparan sulfate in the skin, which is a potent anticoagulant. So we talk about these coagulation diseases, atherosclerosis, heart attacks, strokes, people getting DVTs, and just random clotting. Like, UV light is very important. I mean, when you go and you have a clotting disorder or clotting issue in the hospital, they administer heparin. Like, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to break up this clotting material. And so that's just, I mean, there's probably 1,000 others benefits of getting natural sunlight. But from a circadian perspective, the eyes are more important. And so that's why blue blocking glasses work so well, because you're protecting the eyes as long as you're looking straight forward, like, not looking out the side of the glasses, but you're looking straight forward, because that's where the light comes in through the pupils. But yeah, but there are benefits to getting sunlight in your eyes as well. Getting red and infrared light through your eyes is definitely helpful for the arteries in the eyes, health of the arteries in the eyes. I don't know the specifics, but I just remember reading a post from an optometrist talking about UV and the benefits of getting UV in your eyes, and she was listing out all the benefits there. So natural light, full spectrum light, very, very helpful for the eyes too. But from a circadian perspective, the eyes are more important than the skin, even though they both play a role.
I see these people on social media sometimes talking about getting light where the sun don't shine, genitals, but how do you feel about that? Have you looked into any research and actual benefits there?
I haven't, but given the effects of sunlight and signaling on hormones, I would say that there's probably benefit. However, I don't know if I don't want to say necessary. It's definitely not realistic for the average person, I would say. And whether or not that's going to move the needle in society, that's what I focus on, right? What's going to be the most impactful? What are the most people going to do? People who are out there who want to optimize their health, biohackers, whatever, if they want to do that, fine. I haven't looked at any specific research to say, yes, it's doing something, no, it's not. But again, I'm more focused on the things that people can actually do and are actually going to do, and move the needle a bit more in society so we can move more toward this healthy world.
All right, let's come back to DHA.
Mm-hmm.
And you quickly mentioned you wouldn't necessarily recommend supplementing with that. Talk about the details there. And then how much DHA, given what you explained before, is ideal?
I don't necessarily have a set amount, but I think that if you are prioritizing protein in your diet, preferably like good, healthy animal based or like animal protein that's grass fed and naturally raised as much as you can get that, then the better it's going to be. I think that studies show that like the nutrient content of grass fed versus conventionally raised, like industrial raised, is not that different, but there is a slight difference in omega-3 content of the grass fed meat. It's much higher. So if you're prioritizing protein, you're getting enough protein a day, and that's animal fat protein, then you're getting enough DHA, I would say. Now, as far as supplement goes, people want to supplement a lot. There's all this literature that shows that it's anti-inflammatory, it's good for heart health, and all these things. However, I think that the bigger issue, so you want like your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio to be 1-to-1, at the worst 3-to-1. And people today are like 30-to-1, because of all the seed oils and the omega-6s we find in those seed oils, or just other, I guess, plant fats or foods heavy with plant fats in them, even like a grain, so to speak. But we're getting way too many omega-6s. And so people are like, oh man, we got to make the ratio 1-to-1. So we got to get the omega-3s up. You got to take your omega-3s. Like, no, actually, we should just decrease the omega-6s and bring that ratio down. And then the problem I found with taking omega-3 supplements is that they're unsaturated fatty acids by nature. Omega-3, like the third carbon on the chain, is unsaturated. And so they're prone to oxidation when they're unsaturated. Whereas saturated fats that are all the carbons are saturated with hydrogens, they're much more stable. They're not going to get kinks in them and get damaged. So when you take that omega-3 out of the fish, it's very hard to keep that stable. It's very prone to oxidation from light, from heat, from all kinds of stuff. And so if you want to avoid those, then I would not take omega-3s. And like I said, it's very hard to make them stable. Some people would claim that if you ferment them, then they're more stable, and that may be, but I would just rather eat it in a whole food because it's still packaged in the tissue, and I'm going to consume it in the tissue.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch the full episode. I'll see you over there.
How much serotonin you make when you get UVA light in mid-morning is going to dictate how much melatonin you can make later when you block blue light after sunset. So the storage of serotonin, that's going to be converted to melatonin later. So I tell people